Greetings to you all. Welcome to Grade 8 Tutorials. My name is Afari Ernest, and today we are going to look at the role of government when it comes to the studying of macroeconomics. And so, let's begin with our lesson. So, the role of government in the economy, right? So, all governments provide economic functions. A significant number of these functions have arisen in order to overcome what inadequate of the market system. Market failure, of which we'll be looking at very soon, is commonly identified by economics in many instances, right? So here we are going to talk about market failure. And you know from microeconomics that market failure is what? The misallocation of what? Resources. And so when the market fails to allocate resources effectively in the markets, that is what we term as what? Market failure, right? So here we say there are four major areas of market failure, right? So the first one, market economics. Economies tend to experience severe business fluctuations. The second, we see the market system cannot deal effectively with the spillover, which is the third party effects of many economic activities, and therefore alternate systems of allocation need to be considered. Market forces cannot provide public goods and make a poor job of providing certain other goods of merit. And lastly, market forces lead to an unequal distribution of income and wealth. So these are the four areas of market failure that we are going to look at. And so for the first one, that is when you are talking about business fluctuations. Economies experience severe business fluctuations leading to booms and busts. So when it comes to economics, we say booms. For booms, it means the economy is in a good shape, right? There is employment and there is everything. When it comes to bust, that is when we have what? Inflations and all that. And so all these things can result in what? Unemployment. The business fluctuations can result in unemployment and also economic instability, right? So when we move on to the second one, the market system cannot deal effectively with the spillover. And so the market system struggles to address spillover effects such as pollution, which can harm third parties not involved in a certain transaction. For example, let's say a factory's emission can pollute the air and water, which will affect the whole community. So governments may then regulate or tax industries to mitigate or let's say control those externalities. So when it comes to spillover is just like doing something to affect someone who is supposed not to involve in that particular action. So we look at that as we move on. And also market forces cannot provide public goods. And so this one too, we say the market system fails to provide public goods such as let's say national defense, public parks, police and fire service are also part of the public goods, roads. You can also talk about railway. They are all public goods. So because the market will fail or the market does not provide all these goods, there is no way a single person can stand and tell himself, I'm going to construct a road. Do you get it? And so the markets, when we talk about the market, we are talking about the individuals. You get it? We are talking about the individual. And these people will not just rise and construct roads for the people in the economy, right? And so when things like this happens, it means the government is supposed to then come. That is, the government is supposed to intervene in that particular economy and also regulate such market failure, right? And lastly, we say market forces lead to unequal distribution of income and wealth. And so market forces can lead to unequal distribution of income and wealth, as those with more resources can accumulate more. Do you get it? So when it comes to a situation like this, you see, the rich people in some market economy, the rich people continue to get richer, and the poor people continue to get poorer. Do you get it? Because there is no intervention of the government, because they are CEOs, they choose how to pay themselves and how to also pay their employees. So they can pay the employees or those that are working for them, they can pay them less and pay themselves very huge sums of money. And so that is the market failure we are talking about. So as we are moving on, we are going to look at the whole topic about market failure and how government also regulates market failure. So how government intervene to solve market failure. And one, we are saying government strive to achieve economic what? Stability. And so that is the first thing we are going to look at. And under this, we have subsets. That is, the government aim towards maintain full employment. And the next one is keep prices what? Steady. And the next one is sustain economic growth. And so let's look at the maintain full employment. And so when you see the government want intervene in what? Market failure to maintain full employment, we mean the government want to ensure that everyone who wants a job can get one. Do you get it? That is, the government is going to create what? Employment in the system. This means helping people find work and reducing the number of people without jobs. For example, the government can create jobs building, and the government can also create what? Parks. I hope you get that. Or the government can also create a public goods like police, fire service, and these public goods will also create what? Employment. They will employ people into the police service or the national fire service. And the next one is keep prices what? Steady. The government wants to keep prices from going up and down too fast. So that is fluctuations, right? The business fluctuations. Today there is increase in price. Tomorrow there will be a little decrease in price. The next day there will be a high increase in price. That is what? Inflation. Right. So you see, it will get to a point in time there will be what? Continuous rise in the price of what? Commodities. And so in such situation, the government has to what? Intervene. Because whenever there is continuous rise in prices of a commodities, it means the market is failing to allocate what? Resources. So the attention has now shifted to, let's say, one part of the economy. And so consumers are now going in for a particular commodity of which the suppliers will take advantage of that to maximize profits. So in some situations, you see, it's only the rich people that can afford to buy something. So assuming you are selling a cloth, and that cloth you are selling, today they increase price, tomorrow they increase price, the next day they increase price. It means it's only the rich people that can afford or that can be with that particular inflation in the system. Do you get it? So it means the poor people will just now sit back because they can't afford. So in this case, the government has to what? Intervene. So there's one part of market failure when we are talking about when government strive to achieve economic what? Stability. And the next one is sustain economic growth. And so with this one too, we say the government wants the country economy to keep going what? Better, because that is the main objective. Every government wants his or her economy to what? Grow better. This means helping businesses grow and creating new jobs. I hope you get that. And so, for example, the government can help new companies to start and grow, which can create more jobs. So you see that there will be already existing firms, and the government can join hand in hand with them, and the government can even subsidize some products or other. The government can also give them what? Incentives, so that they maximize what? Production in order to sustain economic what? Growth. Let's move on to the next one. The next one, you see, achieve an equilibrium on the what? Balance of payment. And so with the balance of payment, when it comes to balance of payment, the government wants to make sure the country doesn't own what? Too much money to other what? Countries, or vice versa. So this means balancing the money coming in. That is what? The money coming in the country. So when you export, let's say, product or commodities to other countries, you see, you get money. Money comes into what? The system, right? And so the money coming in and the money going out. When you also export, money comes into the system. And when you import, money goes out the system, right? And so you see, with the import and the export, when you export, you get money. When you import, you lose money. Do you get it? And so when you compare the two, that is what we call balance of what? Payment. And so when the government want to achieve an equilibrium on the balance of payment. It means the government want to match the import and the export equally. So it means if you are exporting, let's say $800 million of, let's say, any product or commodities, let's say cocoa, right, to a different country, and you are also importing, let's say, $900 million of commodities and products or any other form of product in your country, it means there is a difference of $100 million, right? And so this means your currency as compared to a certain currency is going to depreciate, right? Yes. And so in this case, the government might want to achieve an equilibrium on the balance of payments. So it means the government has to also force to export a certain amount of product so that the money coming in the country and the money that they are losing would equal. So if I'm importing, let's say, $900 million worth of product, and I am also exporting $900 million worth of product, it means there is balance. And so there is balance of payments, and this is what we mean by balance of payments. Or another example, you can say if a country exports $100 million in goods but imports $150 million, the government might try to reduce imports. It means you are importing more than what you are exporting. So in this case, you have to reduce your import to match with your export. That is what we mean by balance of payments. Then the next one is prevent environmental damage. And so the government wants to promote the environment and natural resources. This means making rules to prevent pollution, conserve resources, and promote sustainable development. Or for example, you can say the government might limit the amount of plastic bags used to create national parks to preserve wildlife and those habitats. Do you get it? That is the natural home of organism. And so here we are talking about let's say how to protect the environment from being damaged. And the next one is redistribute income and welfare. And so this is where the government introduced tax called progressive tax in order for those low income, the low income earners to also enjoy some certain commodities. So the government wants to reduce the gap between rich and poor. This means taking some money from the rich and giving it to the poor through programs like taxes and social security. So for example, the government might take a percentage of rich person's income and use it to fund programs that help low income families to afford, that is, food or housing. Do you get it? And so you see the government can introduce progressive tax here, that is charging more on high income earners and charging low on low income earners. So that is what we mean by redistribution of income and welfare. And so let's move on to the next one, how governments intervene to solve market failure. So we are done with the first one, that is achieving economic goals, right? Or the first one was governments strive to achieve economic stability. That was the first point. And now the second point is governments try to correct externalities. And so here the externalities we are talking about is also known as spillover. So have this in mind. It also means spillover. And so let's look at how government will also try to correct externalities. Right? Okay. So we say in the pure market system, competition would only generate economic efficiency when individuals faced with true opportunity cost of their actions. Okay. So the whole thing about externalities or spillover, and so they said something here. It says spillover effects are also called externalities. A negative spillover is called a negative externality because there are costs to be paid even though you may be external to the activity, right? And so the whole thing about externality is that, or spillover is that, imagine, or let's do it this way. Imagine you are at a restaurant and someone smokes a cigarette near you, right? You don't want to smell the smoke, but you can't avoid it too. So this is like externality. You are rather suffering from what the person is doing. So you see, that thing will affect you even though you don't like it. That is what we call spillover or externality. I hope you get it. And so in terms of spillover in economics, it is refers to as the impact or effects of an event or policy or action in one area which is affecting another area, or something that someone is doing which will affect you. Or let's take it this way. You can also think of it like a cup of water overflowing. I hope you get that. And so you see that the water in the cup represents the initial event or action. The overflow represents spillover effect, where the excess water spills into the surrounding. So the cup or the water is supposed to be in the cup, but when it goes out of the cup, you see it will also spread on the environment of that particular cup. I hope you get that. So with a spillover or externality, maybe you might be a third person, but the effect, you can also bear the effect. And so when it comes to spillover, we have external costs tend to cause over allocation of resources. External benefits leads to under allocation of resources. So before then, let's look at what the external cost is and what the external benefit is. For the external cost, we can classify the external cost as the negative externality, and the external benefit as the positive externality. I hope you get that. And so when it comes to the negative externality, it's like you are bearing let's say an effect of which you don't like, but you can also avoid, right? Yes. And for the positive, you are enjoying. That is what we mean by the negative and the positive. So when it comes to external benefit or the positive externality, you can say, okay, a typical example is, let's say you are in a neighborhood and one person keep on planting some trees, right? Although you are not the one planting the trees, but you see, it will get to a point in time that you will also benefit from the air that keeps on blowing within that vicinity. Do you get it? That is positive, because you are enjoying. And also, let's say during Christmas, someone has lightened, let's say, his environment. You see that those people at the person's house, they will enjoy from the lightning because it will reduce theft. That is one. And it will also encourage sites. And so in this case, you are enjoying. Although you haven't paid anything, you are not part of the transaction. You are not part of that particular process, but you are enjoying. So that is the external benefit or the positive externality. Then when it comes to the negative externality or the external cost, that one you are losing. So assuming let's say there is a factory closer to you which emits pollutants into the air or the water. You see, this pollutant, it will affect the whole ecosystem, right? And it is going to affect you, the neighbor, your health. And so something that is going to affect you badly, we say it is external cost or negative externality. And anything that you enjoy, that one is positive externality or external benefits. So let's move on. Okay, we have special taxes, but before then, let me talk about external costs tend to cause over allocation of resources. I've explained the external cost. So why are we saying this external cost? This external cost tend to cause over allocation of resources. Why are we saying that? So let's look at that. So let's say the external cost or negative externality. You see, this occurs when an economic activity imposes cost on the third right? So the third party, the one outside that particular transaction or that particular process, is the third party that we refer here, right? And so it's when, let's say, a particular activity imposes cost on third party not directly involved in the activity. Since these costs are not reflected in the market price, firms then tend to overproduce because they are not paying, let's say, the pollutant that they are releasing into the atmosphere. Because if they were supposed to pay, at least they will minimize the production, because they are incurring that loss, and the price of that particular product will also increase because they are going to add that cost of the pollutants to the price of the product, right? And so consumer will also buy less of that particular product because it has high prices. I hope you get that. And so because they are not paying for the pollutants, here the prices are low, and so consumers will also buy more. And so when consumers are buying more, it will also encourage the business to produce more. I hope you get that. That is why we say there is overallocation of resources. So have it in mind that external cost deals with overallocation of resources. And when it comes to external benefits, you are not part of the transaction. You are, let's say, you are staying in your house and someone has planted some trees, of which it served as a windbreak, or it also gives you some sort of air, let's say, in a sunny day. And so because you are not part of the transaction, you see, you are not going to pay the person, and we know money serves as an incentive. And since you are not paying the person will not be encouraged to do more, right? Although what the person is doing is good, but the person is just doing it less. And so we say with external benefit, it leads to under allocation of resources. And when it comes to external cost, it leads to over allocation of resources. So have this in mind. Then we move on to the next one. How government can correct negative externalities. And so how is the government going to correct negative externalities? One, there is going to be special taxes, right? So if smoke from a steel mill had a negative spillover effect on citizens, the government could make the steel mill pay a tax for dumping its pollutants into the air. And so let's say a factory, you release pollutant into the atmosphere, and it is affecting the people or the citizen. And so in this case, we are saying they are not part of the process, but they are being affected negatively. And so with this one, because the government ensure the welfare of its citizens, the government can then tell let's say the factory, or the government can impose tax on the factory that they should pay the pollutant that is being transferred into the atmosphere, right? And so whenever you dump, let's say, a pollutant into the atmosphere, monthly you are going to pay this percentage, right? And so this when the government impose tax on factories for dumping pollutant into the air, you see, this one will let the company produce less. It is going to discourage the company from producing more, because the more that the company produces, the more that the company damages the ecosystem. And so if the government impose tax, it means they are supposed to produce less. And so when they produce less, it is going to at least reduce the amount of pollutants being released into the atmosphere. And the second one is legislation. And so in order to correct a negative externality arising from a steel production, the government could simply specify a maximum allowable rate of pollution. The government can just tell you by regulation or by legislation that there is the amount of product you can produce a day, the amount of output you can produce a day. So let's say you are a factory producing soft drinks. So the government can tell you the number of dozens or cartons that you are supposed to produce in a day. And so that is the legislation. It talks about law. And we move on to the next one. How government can also correct positive externalities, right? Yeah. So how the government is also going to correct positive externalities. And positive externalities is what a benefit to the external or the third party, right? So what can the government do when the production of one good spills benefit over the third party? And so here you see I said with the positive externality, it reduce what, or it is what, an allocation of what resource. And so here, because we know everyone or the third parties in that particular environment or geographic area are what, enjoying from this particular transaction or this particular process which is being taken by the person. So in this case, the government has to encourage the person. The government has to finance the person. The government has to either allow the person legally so that they can take up those particular tasks in order for everyone in the environment to also what, enjoy. So these are the things that we are going to look at. And the first one, we see government financing the production. And so if the positive externalities seem to be extremely large, the government has the option of financing the desired additional production facilities. And so the government has to, let's say you are building a place. Okay, let's say you are building a place or an orphanage, right? Let's say you are building an orphanage. You are the one building the orphanage, but it is helping what, those staying around. I hope you get it. It is helping those staying around. So you see, you are not going to do it much because you are not earning anything from it, right? And so the government will then finance the whole. The government can finance, let's say, the orphanage by giving them any items or cash or any kind. And so that is what we mean by government financing and what, production. And also we have special subsidies, right? And so subsidy is what, a negative tax. And so if you are doing something, or if, let's say, you are buying fertilizers to plant trees in a certain neighborhood, and these trees are helping let's say those staying in your area, it means the government can then reduce the price of that particular fertilizer. I hope you get that, because at the end it is going to benefit many people around you, not only yourself, but many people around you. So the government can then reduce the price of that fertilizer so that it will encourage you to buy more and also produce what, more. And the government can then, by legislation, tell the whole country to undertake, let's say, a particular what, action, which will help all the individuals in the society. And so now let's look at private cost, social cost, and externalities. And so private cost and social cost. Private cost, we are saying this one is only incurred by what, individuals, right? And so let's say if the person is smoking cigarettes, private cost is what, the price or the cost of the cigarettes. That is it. They do not factor anything what in anything like the pollutants they are releasing into the atmosphere. They do not pay for anything like that. So the only cost that they incur is what, the private cost. And the private cost is the internal, or it is also what, the cost of production, right? So assuming you are a firm who is into this soft drinks making, so the private cost is the cost that the firm incur. I hope you get that. Then when we talk about the social cost is the combination of the private cost and the externality. And so when we talk about the social cost, it means the cost or the cost of the factors of production, the cost that you incurred before starting your business. That is what, the private cost. Then the pollutants that you are releasing into the atmosphere, you also have to pay for it. And so when you pay for your cost of production and you pay for the pollutants you are releasing into the atmosphere, when it combines, it becomes what, social cost, because social cost is what, the private cost plus the external cost. I hope you get that. Yes. And so that is the social cost. Now let's look at We are still on the externality. And so when private costs differ from social costs, we have used the term what? Externality. Yes, and that is what we mean here. So governments provide public goods and what? Merit goods. Public goods are goods that can be jointly consumed by many individuals simultaneously without any discriminatory price system being what? Applied. And so with public goods, they are those goods that even when someone consume that particular good, it is not going to reduce the availability to what others. And so with this public goods, you can call it non-excludable what goods, because even if you use it, another person can also use it. And this public, anytime you hear public, let your mind be on what? The government. And so these public goods are normally provided by what? The government to ensure the welfare of the citizens in the country. And so example of these public goods are the national defense. You can talk about the public educations. You can also talk about police and what? Fire services. You can also talk about, that is, roads. So you see, with roads and railway, you can use your car on that particular road. I can also use it. So the fact that you are using it cannot stop me from what? Using it. And so that is what we call, or that is what we term as what? The public goods. And so with public goods, there is nothing like rivalry. It is what? Non-rivalry. We don't fight over public goods. So you can't fight over what? Police, or you can't fight over fire service, or you can't fight over roads. I hope you get that. It is meant for all. That is public goods. And let's also look at the private goods. And so when we say private goods, it is when consumption by one individual reduces the availability to what? Others. Because for the private goods, it is an external person who is producing it, and you are supposed to what? Pay for it. I hope you get it. And you are supposed to pay for it. And so the fact that you are supposed to pay for it, assuming there is one thing or one shirt. And so if someone buys the shirt, it means you are being stopped from buying what? The shirts. I hope you get that. And or the private seller or the one selling the particular product can also stop you from buying. That is what we term as what? The private goods. But when it comes to public goods, no one can stop you from enjoying the good. But when it comes to private, someone can stop you from enjoying, and there is what? Rivalry. There is competition about it. Then so an example under private good is food. We have clothing, we have electronics. You can also talk about what? Housing. And so you see all the examples that I mentioned. When it comes to food, there is rivalry, right? We have to form a queue to buy food, and the seller chooses who to sell that particular food to. I hope you get that. The same thing applies to clothing and the rest. And so characteristics of public goods. Public goods are usually what? Indivisible. You cannot share the public goods. For example, road, right? So it will be there and it is meant for all. Then public goods can be used by increasing numbers of people at no additional cost. And so you can use it, I can use it, no additional cost. I hope you get that. And there is nothing like inflation on public goods. Additional users of public goods do not deprive others of any of the services of the good. So no one can stop you from enjoying, and it is very difficult to charge people for a public good on the basis of how much they use. Yes, someone can drive throughout the year. Someone can drive, let's say, throughout his lifetime. No one can ask the person to pay for using what? The road. I hope you get that. So we move on to the next one. Here we are saying governments provide public goods and merit what? Goods. And so public goods in some way is similar to what? Merit goods. Because merit goods, they are goods whose consumption is generally deemed to be good, right? So what constitutes a merit good is defined by the political process according to what the government deems to be socially what? Desirable. And so what many people are wishing for is what the government is also ready to deliver to them. And so here we are saying owners can exclude others from enjoying associate benefits. Here there is excludability, but the two point. Public goods and what merit goods are not what the same, but they are somehow close. And let's see the reason why I'm saying that. Yeah. So we are saying when it comes to merit goods, it is what according to what the government deems to be what socially desirable, right? So once this decision has been taken, these goods that are selected, right? So yes, when it comes to merit goods, we say these goods that are selected are made available free or almost free to all the citizens, right? Either by the government subsidizing the production or more commonly actually organizing the output themselves. In Ghana, senior high school is what a merit good, and it is what through. So the government can make the senior high school what free, or he can also subsidize it. He can put a price on it, but what subsidize it. The reason why we are saying it is a merit good and it is similar to public good is that this one is also provided by what the government, and this one deems to be what socially what acceptable. It is something that everyone wish for. And so when the government brings something like merit goods, this one is going to be tagged with price because there is something we call excludability, right? There is something we call excludability. And so with excludability, it means you can be excluded from what enjoying, right? And sometimes the government can also make you enjoy it for free, or sometimes pay a little portion of the product, the price of the product, then you enjoy the good. So let's move on to the next one, that is merits, the objectives of a merit good. And so we know merit goods generally what serve what two objectives. The first is what they facilitate a redistribution of real income, as merit goods are largely financed out of progressive taxation. Yes. And so this one, that is why I said the government can make you enjoy the good for free. That is, let's say, free senior high school, right? Yes. And also the government can apply tax, which is progressive what tax. And so for progressive tax, it means those that are earning high, they are supposed to pay what high amount of tax. And when it comes to the low earners, they are also supposed to pay what low tax. I hope you get that. And here we say the result being that the poorer citizens get access to a standard of service that they could not otherwise afford. And so it can be free, or we know you don't have money, you are poor, so pay less, right? So that those that are having money will pay them more. And so if they pay more, it will cover you that you are paying less. That is it. So that is the whole thing about what the merit good. And secondly, by making these goods readily available to all citizens at well below the market clearing price, society can take advantage of positive what externality. So when government implements, let's say, progressive tax, it is going to what affect positively to, let's say, those people staying around that particular area. I hope you get it. That is the citizens. So that is what we call positive externality. So the merit goods are the goods that through the political process are deemed socially what undesirable. Example is what cigarettes, marijuana, and cocaine. And so with this product, the society deemed it as what undesirable. And so if the society do not accept a particular good and there is production of that particular good, what the government does is the government will then impose tax on that particular product so that it will discourage consumption, right? So let's say cigarettes, marijuana, cocaine, right? Socially, when it comes to the global population, I can say 70% of the global population do not like marijuana, cigarettes, cocaine, right? Yes. And so because 70% of them do not like it, it means the government has to what? Impose tax on it so that it will what? Decrease consumption, right? People are not really going to buy it. And so that is the demerit good. And so the last one is government redistributes income and welfare. And so government redistributes income and welfare. We have already talked about the progressive tax system. That is redistribution of income. You are earning more, so you are supposed to pay more tax. Then someone is also earning less or low, so that person is supposed to pay less tax, right? And when it comes to warfare, for warfare, we can also see, you see, the government can introduce what do we call health insurance, right? The government can introduce health insurance, national health insurance scheme. And so this national health insurance scheme is meant to what? It's meant to also support or assist those that are earning what? Less. Because assuming you are earning 100 cedis and you are spending this 100 cedis yourself and let's say your child. So in case of your health and other forms of let's say your well-being, how can you also use, let's say, a portion of this 100 cedis on your health? So in this case, the government will introduce something that is going to what something that you are going to benefit from. So that is the welfare. So a typical example is the national health insurance, right? And let's move on to the next one. That is government redistributes income. We are still there. So we have already explained it. And so that will be the end of our topic for today. That is the role of the government under the studying of macroeconomics. And so once again, my name is Afari Ernest, and this is grade A tutorials. Kindly subscribe to our YouTube channel, like our videos, and if you like the video too, please recommend us at the comment section, and we'll meet again. Thank you.